So, I told you last week, truck wouldn't start. Couldn't be the alternator, couldn't be the battery. Wonder about the starter, turned out not to be the starter because there's corrosion on the battery cable. Would you not believe that a week later, get some issues, and it is a starter? How do I know it's a starter? It's one of those things where I turn it, and like I said before in the last video, when it turned out the battery cable corrosion, when I turned it, you could feel the electrical system, you just kind of hear it drop. Like, you feel load on it, and it's just not engaging the starter. So last week, I drove for about 30 minutes, turned it, start, nothing. Crap. Turn it again, and it starts real slow, but it starts. And see, here's the thing. When you drive 30 minutes, everything heats up. And so your starter heats up. You have a little bit more drag on it. That's why if your battery is like just on the verge of being bad, if you drive 30 minutes, let everything heat up, and then you try to start it, maybe a little slow to start because it's a little more drag on the starter to start all that good stuff. Figure out as a starter. I'm not going to go through exactly how to replace the starter because I just did it, and it's not fun. It's not something I want to take a video of. It is like that. If you have a truck 1,000,000 miles of mine, it is a messy job. But I'm going to give my future self a few tips if I ever have to do this job again. One, original starter on this truck. This truck has over 20,000 miles, original starter. It's got a shield on it. It's a little difficult to take out. Oh, yeah, let me just start over from the beginning here. What you need to do, you're replacing the starter. Disconnect the negative battery cable. That is an 8mm bolt if you're running the stock side post, haven't replaced anything. Underneath the starter, 2 9/16" bolts. Now, I tried to loosen, like the front off the positive, there are 2 battery tie downs that go to the starter. I tried to loosen those, couldn't get them to loosen. Fine, whatever, not gonna worry about it. So this is what I did instead. There is a 13mm and a 9/32. Hold on one sec, let me check. On top of the starter. You're not gonna be able to see this very well. There's a 13mm bolt that is directly off the positive battery terminal. There is a 9/16 nut, and I don't know where that goes to. Probably some sensor, probably some ground, probably something. You can't really see those, but if you feel around, I use a 1/4" socket with an extension, and I was able to get to the top of them. If you feel off the side, off the wheel side as opposed to the driver's side, you can kind of feel those nuts. Loosen those, because you don't want to drop this thing and have it hanging from the wires. These wires, if you have a truck, these trucks are old, so you could snap things off. We know this all, just corrosion, whatever. So I loosened those. Not the easiest thing to do in the world, but I did it. Once you kind of feel around, look at your new starter to get an idea of where these things are, kind of the orientation and everything, take those off. The starter itself is only 9/16, 2 9/16 bolts. Mine are not very difficult to loosen. I loosened them enough just so I could kind of move the starter around if I needed to get to stuff. Once you do that, now if you have the stock starter like mine, it has a shield on top of it. So you're not going to be able to pull it out without removing, like if my feet are to the front of the truck, my head is to the rear of the truck. On the frame rail inside of it, there's a little bracket holding on. It holds an oil line or a brake line, something, and some wiring. You need to take that bracket out because you're not going to be able to get the stock starter out if you don't take that bracket out, because it slides right between these two. Is a brake line on the inside of the frame rail. There's oil lines right below the starter. Great place for them. So I'm feet at the front of the truck, head to the rear of the truck. There are oil lines right here underneath the starter. You need to slide out through here, but there's this bracket right here on the frame rail, brake line and wiring. Take that out, 13mm bolt. So then you want to slide the starter forward, so that way you're clearing the tray, wherever the starter engages, the flywheel. You want to slide it forward. You want to tip it up to where the back goes next to the flywheel. You want to tilt that forward to the top of the engine bay, and then you're going to slide it down. It just barely fits between these oil lines and that frame rail. Take it down. The new one, I got an AC Delco. I like AC Delco. They make OEM Chevy parts. That does not have the shield. It's a lot smaller. That bracket can be in place, and you can slide it right in with the the top of the engaged starter up, then turn it, and then insert it where it fits. Boom. Put one bolt in there. That way it's not just hanging, not dangling. Once that one bolt in, you're going to put those 2 cables back on. Now before you put this new starter in, make a note of where the 13mm and 9/16 nut are. One quick thing is, on my stock is a 13mm bolt. On this new one, it's a 14mm bolt. Still 9/16 both on the smaller wire, but that is important to know because you don't want to go in there with a 13mm and it's actually a 14. And so if I replace this in the future, which I plan to have this truck forever, so very likely I will, good things to know. So tighten those bolts up. Now you kind of know where they are, and without the shield, you can kind of glance from the side between the frame rail, you can kind of see them just barely. Tighten those up, that's going to be very easy. Those 9/16 bolts, they're going to be very easy to tighten up now because now you've gone through this, it's very easy. I had a took a long time for me to kind of get in there and figure everything out, because on the stock one, a little different from the new one, and I'm feeling around trying to figure out where everything is. You know, I'm mapping the orientation of these things, trying to figure out once I got it loose, how do you try to get this thing out? It will not come out. I'm like turning it off which ways. You know, of course, now that I've done it, I figured out exactly how to do it. If I had to do this job again, I could do it in half the time, maybe in a quarter of the time, because now I know all these things, but I didn't then. So those are just my tips for replacing the starter on a C1500 Chevrolet or GMC truck. This is going to make it a lot easier for you. Doesn't require any starter shims or anything, just bolts right in there. And of course, the job's not done until you crank up the truck. So of course, I cranked up the truck before I started this video, because I'm not going to tell you how to do these things if it didn't actually work. Started up strong. I did get the gear reduction starter. Was a little bit more, I think about 20 bucks, but you know, Google tells me it's great, and I believe everything Google tells me. Seriously, I do. I believe everything Google tells me. Now, that is 20 bucks more, but just comparison, I buy from Rock Auto. They're not sponsored this video. If you want to sponsor this video, Rock Auto, I'm more than happy to, because I've spent a lot of money with you, man. All those little magnets that you send me, I've got like an entire wall of those things. I love them, but I buy from you a lot. I saved $60 buying an AC Delco starter from Rock Auto compared to, you know, one of your big box, not big box, compared to your automotive stores, and that's good. They told me it would arrive in 2 days in my cart when I actually bought it, and they sent me an email, the confirmation said 3 days. I actually got it in, 3 days in my cart. When I actually got confirmation email, said 4 days, got it in 2 days. Rock Auto's the best. They have great prices. Again, they're not sponsored. I just use them a lot. So if you're looking for where to get parts, rockauto.com. That is where you get parts. I've saved a ton of money that way. You had to replace the starter, and so once it's all done, it's in. Make sure everything's tight. You want to make sure it's tight. Connect your negative battery cable back, and then your truck will start. You'll be set. You'll be good, and it's a beautiful thing. And if you're curious, if you want to look at the stock starter, I mean, why not, right? You want to get educated. So this is the stock starter. This thing got a bunch of miles on it. So you can see there's a shield, which made it hard to see. You know, you can kind of see the bolts. This is your 9/16. This was a 13mm one. It's dark, sorry. This is the business end that connects with the flywheel. Yeah, this thing's greasy. My truck's got a lot of miles, man. It's greasy, it's nasty in there. I mean, look at me, I'm filthy. So if I'm ever replacing a starter in the future, now I know. I know all the bolt sizes, the nut sizes. I know the best way to take it out and be a lot easier.